to say my house was untidy because of my busy lifestyle, but the truth is that there was plenty of time I had to clean up. I was just lazy. I hated going out in the cold, so I let bags of rubbish pile up against the back door. I hated the feeling of cold, murky water, so I left washing up until the last possible moment. And I hated the sound of the washing machine, so I do my load when it came to a time when I needed something. Honestly, it was never that bad to me until I first saw some bugs. They were fast, but when I caught sight of them, they just seemed like your ordinary garden variety of insect. When one wasn't fast enough, and I gave it a hard press until it was a stain. I would have called an exterminator, but the idea of someone coming over would mean that I'd have to tidy first. So in my head, that was the first job. After a while, I started to develop a small stomach ache. Nothing I couldn't handle, but it was a wake-up call to actually get off my ass when home and actually start sorting things. The biggest wake-up call, though, was a few days later. I had made lunch, which I did from time to time, since it's a great way to save money. An idea that was implanted in my head when I thought about the dreaded exterminator fees I'd be paying soon. I took a bite out of my ham and mayo sandwich and had already swallowed it when I noticed the twitching remains of one of the bugs. I immediately felt sick and wanted to spit out what I ate, but by then it was too late. I threw away the rest of my food, knowing that I needed to sort things as soon as possible. When I got home that day, I saw one of the bugs. I quickly scooped it up and examined it. I wanted to get a good description of it for the exterminator, since saying they're small, black, and have 6 legs isn't really very specific. I held it up to my eye, watching it wriggle between my finger and thumb, detailing it in my head. It was an odd-looking thing to say the least. It had your standard 6 legs. It looked black from a distance, but up close it was more a translucent dark brown. It took a while to notice, but its head almost seemed inflated, no doubt with whatever sugar water or drink they'd scrounged from my kitchen. The only other thing that stuck out to me before I stopped looking were the spines of the legs. However, at this point, something strange happened. First, my focus came and went. I struggled to grasp a solid image of the bug without it soon becoming too blurry to see. My breath shortened, my body now relying on staggering gasps. Something in my brain felt like it shorted, and my mouth instinctively opened. My last bit of control was me trying to stay upright and close my mouth. In my head, I questioned if I was having a stroke. Nevertheless, as soon as my mind lost focus of my body, and onto that question, another reflex took over and shoved the bug into my mouth. I tried to force every portion of my body to spit it out, but everything I did turned into chewing. The feeling of the prickly, broken up carapace rubbing around in my mouth made me queasy all over. My effort to push it out with my tongue turned into swallowing. As soon as it felt like the bug hit my stomach, everything got worse. I fell on all fours, my dizzying vision barely making out small black dots circling my hands. One by one I picked and ate each bug I could get my fingers on. Even though my body was slow, they were seemingly easier to catch, almost like they wanted to be eaten. Eventually, I was scraping the sides of my palms to scoop up groups at a time, with no regard to dust, and swallowing them down with minimal chewing. I felt sick, but my gag reflex was non-existent at this point, no matter how much I wanted to reject them. My last memory was standing up and stumbling away. The next day, I awoke slumped on my bed, my feet hanging off the sides. It seemed I walked there and slept where I fell. As soon as I moved, pain erupted in my stomach. Damn bugs. It was the same spot as before, however, it was many times worse. I got up, and while curled over, I tried to get ready for the day. But it was soon apparent that this would not happen, and I called in sick. I stumbled my way to my chair, ready to Netflix the day away as I wait for the pain to go away. I skimmed over the selections on my recommended and put on an old 90s sitcom to calm my mood. I would have tried to assess what happened the night before, but that would have meant remembering the disgusting act I did, and that was something I didn't want to repeat in my head. Eating was not an option. I didn't eat the whole day since the pain would not subside. Eventually, I started to get tired my body not seeming to have rested well the night before. I rested my head on the armrest as I lay down, and just before I was about to settle, in front of my eyes, I saw movement. A bug. Just as I thought about rushing up to get away from it, my body froze. The bug looked around, and after having sensed me, it stopped its random scuttling and faced me. Try as I might, I could not get my body to move. I tried screaming out, but it just came out as a meek groan. But with that, my mouth opened, and the bug took this as an invitation to enter. I felt it crawl into my mouth, its feet poking away a line along my cheek and down my throat. It forced its way through until it ended deep inside me. Tears were rolling down my eyes from the feeling of helplessness, the feeling of invasion filling my mind. I got up, first thinking I had gained control, but then fell on all fours to the ground, and it began again. Bugs surrounded me as I gorged on them, the brittle morsels getting stuck in my teeth as I swallowed clumps at a time, the gooey mess leaving an alien-feeling layer on my tongue. All my senses numbed as I sped up. The pain I was feeling was gone, which just gave my body no reason to slow down. Eventually I did slow down, my feeling returning as a tingling feeling on my skin. And then I stopped, my body crashing down to the ground as I suddenly regained all control. I got up, tears still smeared around my face, as I spat out as much as I could. But I inevitably knew what was done. I hastily packed a small case and got out my house as fast as I could. In a bit of respite, I booked the nearest hotel I could find. Soon I was laying down on freshly laid sheets in an uncluttered room, the only things out of place being myself and my dusty old bag. My mind was feeling refreshed. Is this what it's like to live in a clean place? I thought to myself, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. As I lay there taking in the new, fresh surroundings, I eventually had to think about what I needed to do. The first thing I thought was an exterminator. That was a must, as I was now terrified of seeing even a single bug. A new priority, I thought it was a cleaner. Being in a clean space made my headspace feel clean. I remember my mother always telling me something like that, but I always just took it as her trying to trick me into cleaning my room. The third priority was seeing the doctors. The pain in my stomach had returned, and it came with a vengeance. It felt like I had swallowed 1,000 razor blades while bouncing eternally on a trampoline, which might not have been too far from the truth. I was exhausted from the day, though, and had resolved that I'd do all this the morning after. Getting up, all I wanted to do was go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, do my business, and go to bed. I unzipped my bag, which was stuffed with unfolded clothes. I rummaged around and pulled out my toiletry bag, which held a new toothbrush and other fresh bathroom supplies. Ready to get my scrub on, I unzipped it and my body froze. From within, dozens of bugs scurried out. They ran over my hand, along my clothes, and all over the bed. I couldn't move. I was again a prisoner in my mind, helplessly watching, wishing the worst wouldn't happen. But it did. My hand turned, my palm now facing up. A cluster of bugs stayed in my palm, running small circles, making sure not to fall off. My hand raised up to my face, now eye level. The water in my eyes were not enough to block the view. Before I could brace myself, I palmed the entire contents into my mouth, and it began all over again. The bed providing a feasting ground in which my uncontrolled body took full advantage of. I had managed to blank most of it out, but not enough. I remember waking up the day after and immediately reaching for my phone. With the pain I was in, I should have really prioritized the doctors, but the events from the previous night made me want to end all the bugs as soon as I could. Between groans of pain, I managed to get a rush job booked within the same day. From the description I gave him, he said it'd be done by the evening. It cost a bomb, but in my mind it was worth it. I also got on the phone to a cleaning company to thoroughly sort my house. If mess brought them in, then I would do anything to prevent this from ever happening again. Again, It cost a lot to have them work on such short notice, but the value was justified. I lay there the entire day in complete agony, but felt smug with the satisfaction that this would soon be over. Other than a cleaner visiting me at the hotel to pick up the spare keys, I was left to curl up and rest. The day after, I received 2 calls, both saying they had done their jobs. I checked out of the hotel, another big expense since it wasn't pre-booked, but at this point I didn't care. I slowly made my way home, having to take many breaks to just lean against the wall for support. My car was still at home, so I needed to get there before I could drive to the hospital. As soon as I entered the front door, everything was alien to me. The tables were spotless. I could see the floor. The shelves were perfectly stacked, and everything smelled like citrus. I took one step and just fine. My second step didn't go as well. My leg caved under me, and I was on the floor. That was all I remembered before blacking out. I woke up to the sound of beeping. My eyes focused on the sterile look of the room. I recognized that I was in the hospital. A nurse noticed me and contacted the doctor who was treating me. Everything felt like a blur as I tried piecing things together. Soon enough, the doctor came, and with him, he brought some answers. He started with the cliché, good news and bad news. The bad news was that they had found some growth in my stomach. However, something was keeping it benign, and it was at a stage where it was still treatable. I looked at the new scar on my stomach and got the answer of if it was still there. I asked how I got to the hospital, and the doctor said I was found by the cleaner. Apparently, they came by to drop off the spare keys since I wasn't at the hotel. When they got to my house, they found the front door open and found me lying on the floor unconscious, with bugs crawling in and around my mouth. I was in shock. I wanted to ask so many questions, but at the same time, was at a loss for words. I pondered about what he meant about the thing which kept the infection benign. When I asked, the doctor had no answer. I vaguely brought up the bugs, asking if anything like that could be a factor. But it just seemed to confuse him, so I changed the subject. My time there just blurred by, and before long, I was back home, a scar to prove to myself that I hadn't just been dreaming this whole time. I stepped into my now hollow-looking house. I looked around, and everything was still, not a bug in sight. I tried looking for them between the spaces under my fridge and other likely hiding spots. Nothing. I don't know if it was the bugs that helped me, but I thanked them anyway, just in case.